All right, great. So we may have people still coming in as they discover that passcode, and or the passcode is disabled now, I think. So they should just be able to hit the link and join. Um, uh, Thanks everyone for coming. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Figured we should just get them going again. Um, this isn't like a giant announcement thing or anything. We used to just do these monthly. And now that there's active work happening again on UCAN, figured it might be a good time to get started again. So the quick info dump from me on things that have happened more recently. Hey, Mosh. Um, uh, is we've gotten Varsig to 1.0, UCAN delegation to 1.0, invocation to 1.0, all the UCAN specs, the top level spec, the container, all of these things. And we have, I think, 3 parallel implementations currently happening. So we have the Rust one that was sort of at like 95% when I took off after Fission died. Last year is getting redone in there's some new IPLD tooling. So I'm putting the new IPLD tooling in so that we're actually compatible with the rest of the ecosystem, but that's pretty close to shipping. There's a Go implementation from the good folks at Infura, so Michael's on the call, and a JavaScript implementation that Ugo is working on. So 3 for now, the theory being that the Rust implementation, Rust has pretty good FFI. We should be able to wrap the Rust one going forward. And then we also have some grants to work on tooling as well. So there's been some discussion, though no actual nothing to show yet on redoing the website. I from time to time get emails from people saying UCAN.xyz is down. I'm like, yeah, I know it was completely out of date. So we'll get a new one of those up. And then other tooling like RPC framework stuff and proof explorers, stuff like that. So that's the brain dump of what's been happening for the past little bit. Oh yeah, Ugo, if you'd like to give a little preview, that'd be awesome.
Probably Grace is the one
Hand it
to do it.
over, pass the button. Yeah, hi everyone. Don't know a few familiar faces, but I've got some more people to meet in this call, that's for sure. But hi, Chris. I was from the PL side for a while, and obviously being close and adjacent to UCAN stuff for some time. But yeah, Hugo and I have been digging into sort of specking things out and looking at how we can, well, obviously more the JS side of things, and I'm going to help out with the web side as well. And we kind of started noodling around on a new UCAN site. I've just dropped the link into the chat. This level is like, this is the kind of sketch layout for the main homepage, but there's no design elements yet, so we need to go through in detail. But this is pulling together all the awesome spec work that is currently around on GitHub from various places. And the way this works is it actually sources all the content from the current GitHub repos at the moment and just pulls it in as you update it. So we don't need to kind of migrate to a new location at this point. So you can basically continue editing the spec documentation and additional repos that we have in other places, and we can pull all these in. This actually is a little bit of generic LLM content on the front, so we'll see if it actually understands the documentation correctly from what we've got. So we probably need to do some edits, call this a staging site for now. But yeah, this is more to get it into shape so we can start hacking around. But it does have full index search. It's all responsive. It uses Astro for the build. It's all static. It also has LLM generation as well. So we have a full text link for once this is together. So it will basically, let me put this into the chat as well. So it will generate out the LLM page, which is essentially just from the markdown files into a full documentation. So it will be able to traverse it a lot easier. And then if you go into the actual page itself, obviously you can just navigate through the specs, which is currently based on the layout that we've got in the GitHub working group. But we might want to do some tweaking because this does some post-processing to link pages together and remove some sections and redo things. So there will be opportunities to improve this, but this is a kind of a scratch to get things working. And then we'll add some pages as well to do the debugger as well. So that part will be separate but embedded inside of this. So because if I don't know how familiar you guys are with Astro, but you can essentially embed any kind of front-end library, JS, Vue, React, Svelte, whatever your flavor is. So we can wrap up the debugger, which we're intending to deploy inside of a wrapper that we can do as an extension, a Chrome extension, and also inside of the page itself eventually. So it'll live here and in many places. And hopefully then we only have one code base to kind of play around with and edit, and we can use it and operate wherever. So it'll be deeply embedded into documentation. So it's a doc-heavy site, which essentially I think leans very closely into what UCAN is about at this stage. But there's a bunch of community content I think I would love to get your hands on to put together. So any video content, any slides, materials, and things that are more higher level, and then we can sort of augment that alongside the specs. So that's the TLDR at this stage. I think we can probably shape this up in the next few weeks and just get this live as a replacement. And yeah, any thoughts and will be welcome.
Fantastic to see stuff moving along, and it looks way better than the prior one. Not to throw too much shade on the prior one, but yeah, especially the full text search is pretty great. You may have mentioned this before, but is the code available anywhere?
Not as yet, but I will get the repo out in about a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah, we can push it to the working group, and then we can all work on it together there. So it should be relatively easy. But as I say, it does just pull all the content from the current GitHub pages. So we can choose to say we can make a documentation section that's specific to the site, and those content pages can live inside this. And then if we want to source content from other places, it felt like a decent strategy for now, but we may, at some point decide to migrate all into the site. But it's quite nice to have things living, in different areas and just converging them together. So we can play around and see how it works best.
Yeah. At least historically, we haven't been precious about where stuff lives. If you need permissions to create stuff in the UCAN working group, or like if that's a convenient place for you to put stuff and you need permissions, let me know. Yeah, not too stingy with those. From the chat, will you be using simple analytics or maybe plausible?
We haven't got any analytics yet, but yeah, either of those could be easily installed. So we can choose if there's anything useful. Plausible have got historically, I've used Plausible a lot, but I think they've become a bit more restrictive in some ways. So yeah, we'll take a look, see what's best. What else?
You should be able to get at least basic analytics from the Cloudflare stuff.
Yeah, that's true, because this is a multi-page site. So realistically, you'll get hits for every page. So if we don't want to have any client-side things, we can still effectively get the index from that. But yeah, if we want to do other things, which I think we will do, like website level stuff where we test, okay, are people finding the pages they want? What are they searching for? Things like this. We should maybe create a little dashboard around just to understand how people are using it, and that would be useful.
Mm-hmm. Another comment was a nice thing to explain is how to use UCAN with existing APIs with least paid. And there's a couple topics that people ask about pretty frequently when they get involved in UCAN, as I'm sure you and Ugo experienced working on this stuff previously too. It's actually, at least in my view, David is right below me in the grid. And we did a couple hour session a few weeks ago on exactly this of like, I'm trying to model it like this. I'm like, if you just tweak it like that, it's going to be much easier. So just maybe having a section for like frequently asked questions with like diagrams and stuff, or like if we could generate, I'm a big fan of mermaid diagrams, but like, just something easily editable and contributable might be helpful. I don't know if Astro supports Mermaid specifically, but just so we don't have to
Sure, it
think of the
does. I've got
vector
that working
referencing.
already. So
Amazing,
it's all there.
great.
We can go.
Yeah,
I noted there were so many mermaid diagrams that I needed to give it justice. So I was like, that had to work from day one. So yeah, we're ready to roll.
Amazing.
especially like this, the guides session could be entirely made by contributors, like just running a markdown guide and can easily be included in the website for those kinds of like explainers and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the mermaid stuff works really well, and alongside the LLM things, it's just like the machines understand this so well, and of course it'll work. We can render in different colors and languages as well very easily. Then, so I'm a big fan of keeping it plain text wherever possible.
Some other
Yeah.
comments.
So
Oh, sorry. I think I see you reading, so I don't.
no, yeah, trying to, but I think yeah, it's kind of key. I feel the same. So I think this is also me kind of understanding the world of UCAN. So I think this is like the heavy introduction, looking straight at the spec level. So we probably I need some help from everybody who's been battle testing us for a bit more time to like, what would be the introductory content? How would we guide someone through this? And what would, because if you come straight in and land on the specs page, all well and good if you're implementing, but of course, if you just want to get an introduction and get a feel for it, I think there's a softer path we can take. So yeah, code examples, different projects, other things like that would be great to pull out. And I think there's a bunch in the ecosystem. I'm not sure, what's up to date, what's with the current spec. I know this is more towards the 1.0 spec release. So everything here is kind of pointing to that direction. So I haven't gone into adding versioning into the site, but we could do that as an option in the future. And then we could have different code examples that would be like, oh, this is deprecated, but it's still here and useful. And yeah, actually, even just hacking around with some of the LLM stuff, it was okay at understanding most of the primitives. So it kind of got bits together, but they weren't functioning that well. So I still had to go in and play. So yeah.
I think Yusuf's blog post from Web3 Storage might be a good level of introduction. It's maybe like 4 pages on screen, and it's kind of a narrative intro. I'm sure there's parts of it that are outdated or missing at this point, but that might be one to take a look at as like do a light edit and use that to introduce brand new users, and then don't do what IPFS did and have 7 intro pages. just have the one.
We are fans of replication, so it's good.
Fun times.
Yeah.
I think either that or Sriracha's maybe goes in too much detail for the first contact, but yeah, it might be a good research to use.
Yeah, and they've published a couple of recent ones. I've not looked at them in depth, but I see if there's something that's more relevant as well. Where I think they're more integration level for their API, but less general UCAN intro stuff. But yeah, I would love, maybe we do this on the Discord somewhere where we just collect any examples you've got, and I'll trawl through them, so we can just throw them all into a bucket, and then I'm happy to dig through that and put them in some order.
Yeah, and also having the repo available, it's very useful, so anyone can kind of look at it and contribute, because at the end of the day, it's literally just a markdown file. So we can all like chip in and help out with guides and introduction section and all of it.
Yeah, agree. I think some things I would need some help with will be just making sure we've got sort of the general nav structure correct. So then we sort of agree to a hierarchy with URLs to some degree, and then we can edit from there. So for now, it's just sort of flat level, but yeah, we can get that narrative in place, and then people can have pages to edit.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, if there's anything else, you can find me on the chat.
Yeah, there is I guess we could chat about this in. Yeah, I don't think we actually have a website channel. We will later today, because it might be nice just to have things separated out, and we can have the link once the repo is available at the top of the page too. Yeah, amazing. Super awesome to see that all coming along. You had mentioned about having like a drop down for different versions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure in 6 months we're going to be in a call and I'm going to be eating these words, right? But I mean, UCAN's been around for 5.5 years now, 5.5 years. And we went through a bunch of iterations on it, and some of those, it was really, really painful that it kept changing because people, were then basing big chunks of their own architecture on it. So the intention with the 1.0 is that this is a stable version now, and like
Mm-hmm.
maybe we need to, maybe there's a security bug that we need to fix in it or something, right? So maybe we do a minor point release or something. But the hope is at least that we won't need to have lots of different versions and things.
Good to hear. That makes that easier for sure. We can highlight sort of key changes on the site over time if we want to. So we can have like little badges for new things or any changes, and we can have tabs for inline code examples that might have been updated. So I think, yeah, more stable the better, of course.
Mm-hmm.
By
Sounds
the
like
way,
Michael has
Book,
some examples that would also be
yeah,
helpful.
you have access to the XYZ domain, right?
I believe so, yeah. I can check. But we could also pick a different domain if we want to. So,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty sure I do have access to it. I just have to check my DNS. When Fission went under, we transferred a bunch of domains to various people, whoever wanted which part. Um, yeah. We did have to change some of this is kind of more just like off to the side. We did have to change the Luma calendar name because the old calendar, which works in a different way that they don't want you using anymore, still has the name registered from the old UCAN. So we had to create, I think we're now UCAN-community or something. It was frustrating, but yeah, Luma, shrug. This has been my response in general about Luma lately. But yeah, having one place. Oh yeah, and actually, maybe if we could integrate into the website, like a little community calendar or something, that might also might be nice, so that we can point people at stuff that's happening, or if there's talks coming up, things like this could also be a good place to put it. Yeah, RIP repeated online events. I don't know why Luma's making some of these changes. Maybe people had been running events, so like forever, and then they stopped happening and they got complaints. I don't know, but it's definitely making it harder to work with. But cool. Other stuff on the website? People have thoughts? Okay, amazing. Yeah. Just a couple comments coming in. It's great. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And it sounds like hosted on Cloudflare, which is also great. We get the distributed side of that, so awesome. Cool. So that was the main agenda that I had. We don't have to go to the top of the hour. If this ends up being half an hour, then great. But if anybody has anything else to chat about, this is the time. Oh, in the middle of Hollywood with crap bandwidth. Okay. So Infura has a valid 1.0 implementation with delegation, invocation, and the latest varsig. So a little bit of backstory on varsig. It was sitting at a first version. So it's a like a multi-codec for signature types. We just couldn't call it multi-sig because that's an existing concept. So that happened actually in a different group because a bunch of people had a need for this. And when Ugo went to do an implementation, he realized that there was some stuff that some parameters that didn't make sense. And so we're like, let's make this change and bump it to a 1.0. So that's also sitting at a stable 1.0 now. So Impura has a varsig, UCAN delegation, UCAN invocation implementation in Go. The main thing I think that they're waiting for is test vectors from other implementations to make sure that we can all talk together. Yeah, Ugo's also nodding. Yeah, because that's really the point of standards, right? Is things should be able to talk to each other. And I was just looking a couple of days ago at the spec repo, and we have old test vectors from old versions. We really do need to get a 1.0 set of 1.0 vectors out there. Govarsig, yes, that's split out. Oh yeah, they did a DID implementation as well for Go. So lots of good Go things happening here. And then they're also building some tooling, which is fantastic. Yeah. And from chatting with the people doing the other implementations, really the hope is that we get over this first 1.0 interoperability hurdle, and then we move everything into tooling. So I think we feel pretty confident about the spec as it stands and like what it can do and sort of, our learnings from the past 5 years on security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we need to make it as ergonomic as possible to use. And we're still getting questions from people of like, how do I just recently in the Discord, how do I use this with OAuth? And it's like, well, not directly, but if somebody wants to write a proxy, that would be really helpful. Things like that. So after, like, we really do need to push to this interoperability, but after that's done, I think it'd be good for us to chat on one of these calls as a community of like, well, what are the tooling bits that people see that they need the most to get started with? Awesome. Yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's the
just
JS
posted
repo.
the JS repo. It's still missing a bunch of stuff, but like at least I can generate tokens now, so we can share between us as test vectors and whatnot. So Varsig and it encodes the full stuff that we need to encode, and we can start at least showing the test vectors. But there's a lot of like test suites and other things that are still missing that I need to. I'll be working on those this week and next week.
Awesome. I just posted a link to the Rust implementation and my branch V1 2025 edition. As I mentioned before, we had a mostly working implementation last year. But in the meantime, the DAG CBOR tooling has changed in Rust. And so I'm doing a manual port over. I just literally deleted everything and I'm pulling in modules as I need it and adjusting stuff as I go. So that's the branch V1 2025 edition.
Another thing that as an example of using the JS implementation that I'll try to build in the following weeks is an actual service as a CID store and revocation service, which I hope to implement with a UCAN auth and like an API to actually store CIDs or UCANs indexed by CID and actual revocations implemented in the spec.
Yeah, and I think it would also be helpful to have some to break out as much tooling as we can for things like proof stores and whatnot, especially the stuff you're talking about, revocations. Having to do 3 parallel implementations of the entire stack all the time is possible, but it ends up being a lot of work. And so the more that we can just reuse from each other, or even just if part of it's in, say, Node, running a little Node service next to, say, a Rust thing is completely fine. And then using that just to at least get started. And then if you want a full Rust or Go or whatever version of a thing later, as long as you can talk to it, um, say over HTTP, then great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we've talked at least me and you about this CID store for UCANs and the revocation service.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a thing we can run as a public goods
Mm-hmm.
type of service because
Mm-hmm.
it's very low maintenance, and even bandwidth and storage is also like super low. We can limit it to like a few kilobytes
Mm-hmm.
and be already useful for a bunch of people trying out UCANs without trying doing all of that in their own service, in their own thing, and
Mm-hmm.
just like using HTTP, and that's it.
Yeah. With certificate capabilities, basically the predecessors to UCAN, in the early 2000s, they tried doing a bunch of stuff purely on DNS, and the problem that they ran into was we can't shove all of these revocations into DNS. There just isn't enough space. Um, but yeah, having a public infrastructure to do this, and this is actually something that, and yet another short rant from me on this call. Something that I wish had happened in the IPFS community would have been having a consortia. I mean, I've talked about this in the past, uh, running nodes and actively replicating with each other. And so if we could actually get, say, a revocation store, but replicate it across, for resilience reasons, multiple providers. As you say, it's super lightweight. We can shove things in a Merkle tree, all of this stuff. Um, uh, I think would be really helpful. And then, yeah, shuffling around updates, like what we could update once an hour, kind of thing, like really slowly, and it would still be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And eviction and all of this stuff built in. Yeah. Sorry, eviction of expired certificates and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Do you already have a subset of folks who are interested in running a node, or is this the call to action?
This is the call to action. Uh, I mean, I don't want to put words in Infura's mouth. Infura obviously runs stuff uh, for money as an infrastructure provider, but I assume that they would be willing to, or they may be interested in creating like a one-click sort of experience for this, which could be nice. But yeah, no, this is the call to action. We should see who's interested in running this as a public good, I think.
We
And
need to
especially
have
with it being relatively
code
lightweight, we
for
might be
them
able
to
to get
run.
it. Oh, sorry.
Still need to have the code for them to run.
We need to have the code for them to run. Yes. And really, ultimately what we're talking about is who has admin access to, actually run particular nodes. I think a goal, idealized goal at least, would be to be able to run it, say, on the free tier on Cloudflare. And then it's mostly a question of how many accounts can we get to run this thing and sync between each other.
Yeah, that's basically the reasoning for the example that I want to ship. So actually validate that assumption that we can actually run it on the free tier without problems and fast enough. So others can also follow up on that.
Yeah. And especially with like relatively cheap block storage, we could probably put a bunch of stuff in R2 for very cheap / free, and then have it run on workers and just spin up workers as needed. So then we get the scale automatically. It
The
actually might
size of
be,
the UCANs itself, it can even be directly in the KV, the pulsar KV, because it's small enough.
yeah.
We need to validate what works better. That's one of my goals.
Yeah. Do we know if Cloudflare is still doing Web3? They used to have a Web3 IPFS and Ethereum, I think. Like
IPFS,
experimental team.
I think it was probably Shell can talk more about this, but I think they shut it down. This IPFS bits.
Mm.
I think they still run some other kinds of like Web3 Ethereum stuff, but probably already as a legacy kind of situation.
Yeah, they're no longer running a gateway. It's really expensive to run gateways. They're actually providing resources for IPOS to run on their hardware. But the other model I think that's like more comparable is DRAND. DRAND has like 18 institutions and I think it's much lighter to run. It would be like 7 cognitive leaps to try to shoehorn this code into the entropy nodes, but or at least a model to look at and maybe like a list of organizations that might be interested in participating.
Yeah.
Might be even more formal than you would need for this.
Yeah, DRAND is the one example I've seen of this actually work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that, I actually might not be bad to talk to them. They came along a few years ago. We did a thing at AWS, like the AWS offices with a bunch of IPFS people. And DRAND came along to essentially pitch this concept to them. And a big part of what they were talking about is like it's super lightweight. You just have to participate and you get good entropy. But even then, it was like overcoming objections and all of this stuff. But I would love to, yeah, maybe I should reach out actually. I can just write in
I
reach.
think another boost is like potentially going to universities because you're always going to have like cryptography researchers with some machines and resources that they can use, and like it's less to, you don't have to make a business case for it. There's research. It's an interesting intellectual or like computer science problem to be able to run this network you're describing. So,
Right. In the chat, Brent asking what sort of hardware is needed. Could I run it on, say, like a Raspberry Pi? Yeah, I think that's the goal. It's just when you would receive a revocation, you check that the revocation itself is authorized, and then you put the CIDs, or like the hash of the revoked certificates in a store of some kind, and then you respond to requests of like, yes, that's in the store, or no, that's not in the store, and that's it. And then you can delete stuff out of that as the original certificate that's been revoked has an expiration on it. When that expires, you can then delete the revocation because it wouldn't have been valid anyway, and so you can just collect those from time to time. So it's more of a storage problem than a CPU problem. It's like, how are you going to store them? Because they're, especially if you're running this like for the community, there could potentially be quite a few. And then all the practical questions of like somebody's hitting you with billions of these things and trying to DOS you and all of this stuff, right? So maybe we should gate it with UCAN.
That's why
we give people the ability to write into the store. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way that I'm thinking about it, at least the prototype that I want to build. Like there's a limit to like no off API calls, and after that you actually need to use a UCAN. There's still no limits, but if you use a UCAN, you have no limits. If you don't use a UCAN to authenticate, you have some limits that should like gate a little bit. Because you actually need to use the UCAN tooling to actually get more lift the limits, which is kind of dogfooding our own stuff.
Yeah. It is amazing how fast the storage on even just signatures stacks up. I've been doing a bunch of work over at Ink and Switch with AutoMerge and adding basically UCAN inspired stuff to that stack. And if you're trying to sign every keystroke happening, you fill up a disk pretty fast. So I don't think that there'll be that many revocations because the main revocation mechanism, like issuing revocation, is sort of like your last resort, right? But yeah, like it could end up being a lot of storage over time.
Yeah, especially if people start defaulting to no expiration dates.
Yeah,
it kind of grows up pretty quickly.
Yeah. It is one of these things where it's like in the specs it says you should not depend on revocation, right? But people will do this anyway. So
And we
um,
recommend time bounds on
yeah,
everything, but yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, there's also been some discussion of putting UCAN specifically on backend services for sort of like decentralized social media, which might be an interesting use case for us to think about, specifically for syncing data and giving permission to sync between storage nodes. All experimental, obviously, but thinking about this in terms of more of like, because historically we've had very much a user facing story for this and thinking about passkeys and login and this kind of thing. But I'm actually starting to hear now more about like server to server interaction. So it might be worth thinking a little bit about that scale too, rather than I'm one person, I have one proof, right? Thinking more about I'm running a service
Right.
for 10,000 people and this kind of thing.
All right. What else is there? Anyone
Yeah.
else wants to share something?
Oh, that might be all the topics that we have. So if that's the case, we can give everyone the last 15 minutes back, which is always positive. Big thank you to everyone working on this stuff, implementations, website, super excited about website, um, and for all the thought about doing the oh, what's that? It's like a is like a Raspberry Pi basically. Oh, yeah, it's got a screen. Neat. Um, uh, and then yeah, for the consortia, it sounds like there actually is maybe some interest, at least in this group, in seeing that happen. So actually, Mosh, if we I'll ping you after. I'd be curious if you know who's the right person to talk to at DRAND about their experience doing this. Um, yeah, but unless anybody has anything else, I'll see you all next month. Don't hesitate to drop into the Discord. And thanks everyone for coming to the re-kickoff of this.
I realized my audio was off, but yeah, this is, I'll follow up on the Discord. This is a little device. I think it'd be curious if it works. It's basically a really low powered computer, very cheap. Bye.
Okay. See you all.
Actually asking
Oh,
for the
link to the
Discord.
Discord. Yeah, here, let me grab that for you.
Discord. I always mess up Discourse and Discord.
Yeah, me too.
It has the same feeling.
Yeah, and let's try to figure out how to kind of share test vectors between each other. It's like inputs and outputs.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, use the Discord to coordinate in chat. If anybody needs access to anything, drop me a line. Again, we're not stingy with that stuff. And yeah, let's build this thing together.
Cool.
Epic.
Bye bye.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.